This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be happy. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure-hearted one having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. All right, I'm going to start tonight with a couple of verses from the Dhammapada, which introduce the subject, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, and Samaditi, right view, is the very first aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is from a chapter in the Dhammapada. I hope you're familiar with it. It's a compendium of various verses of the Buddha. It's a wonderful book. And this is a chapter called The Path. The best of paths is the Eightfold Path. The best of truths, the Four Noble Truths. The best of qualities is dispassion. And the best among gods and humans is the one with eyes to see. This is the path for purifying one's vision. There is no other. Follow it, you'll bewilder Mara. Follow it, you'll put an end to suffering. This is the path I have proclaimed, having pulled out all the arrows. And there's more. If we get a chance, I'll read more of it. One moment, let me get arranged here. And I have to apologize for reading so much, but that's the way it is now. And this is about the Noble Eightfold Path. And what is the Noble Eightfold Path? And let us read. That is the middle way, the Noble Eightfold Path, which gives rise to vision, gives rise to knowledge, gives rise to peace, gives rise to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, and to nibbana. And what is the Noble Eightfold Path? And what I'll do is read from the factors, a list of the factors from this book. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's book called The Noble Eightfold Path. And I'll read the various factors. The first factor is right view, which is understanding suffering, understanding its origin, understanding its cessation, and understanding the way leading to its cessation, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, of course. The second one is right intention, which is intention of renunciation, intention of goodwill, intention of harmlessness. And the next aspect is right speech, abstaining from false speech, abstaining from slanderous speech, abstaining from harsh speech, abstaining from idle chatter. The next one is right action, abstaining from taking life, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual misconduct. The next is right livelihood. That's giving up wrong livelihood. One earns one's living by a right form of livelihood. And the next is right effort. And this is mental. Let me make it clear. The effort to restrain defilements. The effort to abandon defilements. The effort to develop wholesome states. The effort to maintain wholesome states. The next is right mindfulness. Mindful contemplation of the body, mindful contemplation of feelings, mindful contemplation of the mind, mindful contemplation of phenomena. And the last one is well known, right concentration or right samadhi, actually. The first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, and the fourth jhana. Now, why am I reading these? You may wonder. And these are divided into three parts for training purposes. So you may see them in other ways. And they're listed in moral discipline, or sila, concentration, and wisdom. Instead of right view, instead of it being at the beginning, it's at the end. Why is that? But we'll find out. Aspect 1, samadhi, right view. It's first and at the end of the path. First, it's at the beginning to provide intention, a path, a direction for one undergoing the training. Then, at the conclusion of the training, after one has gone through everything, including insight meditation, we have superior right view and higher wisdom. So we have both right view and higher wisdom at that end, and that means nibbana. Now we have two kinds of right view. One is mundane right view, and the background for mundane right view is not what I just mentioned, nibbana. This is for one not pursuing the total path. This is the mundane right view. Is the background is kama, one's belief and understanding, general understanding of what karma is. And what that is simply that one has a moral ownership of one's actions, one's speech, actions, and thought, a moral ownership. And there are two kinds, obviously. There's wholesome and unwholesome, kusala and akusala. You may be familiar with kusala means wholesome action. There are 10 forms of action, of right action. Let me just read these out because my memory isn't that good. 1 minute. All right, action. These are unwholesome. Destroying life, taking what is not given, wrong conduct in regard to sense pleasures. And then verbal action, false speech, slanderous speech, harsh speech, idle chatter. And then the last three are thought, covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. Now, the 10 courses of wholesome are just the direct opposites of these. Abstaining from the first 7 courses of unwholesome, karma, being free from covetousness, ill will, and holding right view. Now, the first aspect, right view. Superior right view is translated as the Four Noble Truths. We've all heard of those. Suffering, the arising of suffering, the transcending or cessation of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path, which leads to suffering's final end. Now, what is suffering as a definition? One moment. You've heard this list, I'm sure, at times. This is the noble truth of suffering. Can everybody hear me all right? I'll assume you can. This is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are suffering. Association with the unpleasant is suffering. Separation from the pleasant is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. Now, why is that? Why is this five aggregates of clinging suffering? Why is it in that list? And you know the five aggregates: material, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, all connected with clinging, all bound up together. We are the 5. This is what we grasp. And the 5 are us. We are nothing else. Thus, the Buddha's declaration that the 5 aggregates of clinging are dukkha, or suffering. Now, why does the Buddha say that the 5 aggregates are suffering? It's because they're impermanent, anicca. As soon as one grasps onto something, it disintegrates and disappears and is replaced with something else. So, although we can't see this generally until we have nibbana of some kind, some form of nibbana. Even a brief experience of nibbana, then we'll see that. Now, the Buddha said, what are the 4 noble truths? Suffering, the arising of suffering. Okay, the Buddha said the rising of suffering is caused by what? Tanha, or grasping. And the cessation of suffering is caused by the cessation of suffering. And we know already the Noble Eightfold Path is the fourth noble truth. Now, I have a simile for why suffering, why the five aggregates are suffering. And this is the fountain, I call the fountain of suffering. It's the fountain of the five aggregates, The fountain of the five aggregates. If you can imagine, shooting up from the ground is a fountain of water. You've seen these fountains like Old Faithful, pictures of Old Faithful, and they rise, a column of water rises to the top, hesitates, forms a little cloud, and then immediately falls back down to the ground in a column on the outside. So on the inside, you have a column of constantly rising water, constantly rising, and on the outside, you have another column falling, constantly falling. So no sooner does one column go up, but constantly another column is falling at the same time. And in the middle, there is nothing, there is emptiness. There is nothing in them of permanence. This is the fountain of the five aggregates, constantly arising and constantly falling, impermanent, constantly disintegrating. And we're not aware of it at present. All right? One moment, let me get my page again. Okay. Craving, the origin of suffering. All right. Page 20. This is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving which produces repeated existence, is bound up with delight and lust, seeks pleasure here and there, namely craving for sense pleasures, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. And the third noble truth is the cessation of suffering by the disappearance of craving. Page 25. Now, insight, from insight meditation, arises by contemplation of the five aggregates, the factors of existence, in order to discern their real characteristics. At the climax of such contemplation, the mental eye turns away from the conditioned phenomenon comprised in the five aggregates and shifts its focus to the unconditioned state, nibbana, which becomes accessible through the deepened faculty of insight. With this shift, the mind's eye sees nibbana, and there takes place a simultaneous penetration of the Four Noble Truths. By seeing nibbana, the state beyond dukkha, one gains a perspective from which to view the five aggregates and see that they are dukkha simply because they are conditioned, subject to ceaseless change. At the same moment nibbana is realized, craving stops. The understanding then dawns that craving is the true origin of dukkha. When nibbana is seen, it is realized to be the state of peace free from the turmoil of becoming. And because this experience has been reached by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, one knows for oneself that the Noble Eightfold Path is truly the way to the end of dukkha. And this is the right view that penetrates the Four Noble Truths, coming at the end of the path, not at the beginning. We have to start with right view, conforming to the truths acquired through learning and fortified through reflection. This view inspires us to take up the practice to embark on the threefold training in moral discipline, concentration, and wisdom. When the training matures, the eye of wisdom opens by itself, penetrating the truths and freeing the mind from bondage. All right. Now I can answer questions now because what I wanted to do is read more from that chapter on the path. But are there questions? We have 5 minutes before 30 minutes have gone by, and we can... no questions? Any questions on the box, whatever you call the I forgot what you call it, the chat box?
There's no question in the chat box.
All right. Well, then I can either read some more from the book, the verses, or I can save that till after the meditation and start the meditation now, if you like. Would you like me to do? Oh, you would like me to do that? All right. Well, then we can have an extra 5 minutes if you wish. It's up to you. All right. Then we'll start the meditation now. I can ring the bell if you like. I never do, but we'll start the meditation, and it's a silent breath meditation. Are you all familiar? Does anyone have a problem with that kind of meditation? Do you need an explanation of breath meditation? You need an explanation? Well, if you've ever seen Ajahn Brahm's pamphlet on his simplified method of meditation, I'll start with after silent meditation. First there is meditation, and then there is silent meditation in the present moment. You start with that, if you can handle that, and then you go on after a while, silent meditation in the present moment. And silence does not mean speaking, it means silence in your mind. Is that at first you allow the mind to talk, and then you gradually reduce that to silence in the mind as far as you can. Now, obviously, that's impossible unless you're a very skilled and practiced meditator, and so you try to attain that as a goal, and you continue doing that, and then when you are good enough at it, and you will have to decide that you start doing breath meditation. And first you do breath meditation, and you do every step in the breath, the in-breath, out-breath, taking the breaths, releasing the breaths, in-breath, out-breath. Whatever occurs in the breath, you see it. And let the mind go. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to think about the past or the future. You just think about the feeling of an ordinary breath. This is not some kind of yogic breathing. This is simply a breath. If everyone just takes a breath, just an ordinary breath, and you just watch that breath come in and go out, and that's what you observe. That's your meditation object that we're practicing. All right? Is that clear? It can go on farther, but that's as far as I want to go with this, unless I'm sure that you're skilled enough to go on to the beautiful breath, which may come to you, and if the breath becomes joyous and so on, just allow it to come in and go out, in and out. All right, so good. So it's 7:30 by my clock, and we'll start. Unless there are any other problems or questions, we'll start the meditation for a half hour. If I say something to you, will you be able to hear it? Or am I mute? Oh, good, because once in a while, I may say something to coach you, like keep on the track, something like that. All right, so I can still do that. So let the past go like a handbag in your left hand, and let the future go like another bag in your right hand. And just breathe on, in and out. Let all those thoughts of the past go and all the thoughts of the future go. You stay in the present moment. This is present moment meditation. Silent present moment meditation, if you're able. See if the breath becomes longer or shorter. See if the breath makes more noise or less noise. Don't try to change it necessarily. Just see what happens. Just observe. This is your object. If you become distracted with thoughts, bring them back to the breathing. Try to keep silence in your mind. Just pull the mind back to the breathing. If any worries come into your mind about what's happening in the future, just let them go. Observe any changes in the breath. Make note if they're longer or shorter. You may have to take a deep breath. Feel free to change your breathing. If you have distractions that are minor, like some pain in your leg, you can do without moving, go ahead and do it without moving. Ignore the pain, in other words, without moving. But if you have to move, then do it very slowly and go back to your original position. Unless you have to change posture. Let all thoughts from the outside subside. Watch the breath. Now, if you can, imagine a beautiful form of energy coming in when you have an in-breath. Let that beautiful form of energy come in and fill you, your whole body, and fill your whole mind with a beautiful sunlight, or whatever light you can think of. And continue meditating on this light as it comes in and invigorates you. And this light can be filled with metta, loving kindness. Now in this last minute I'd like to wish all beings metta, loving kindness, in particular all those who have joined us for this session. May all of you have metta. And you may think in your own mind, if you wish, that you spread metta to all those other people who have joined us for this session. Metta, love and kindness. And now my clock says 8 o'clock. May all beings be happy. May all of you be filled with metta. And so with that we conclude the meditation segment. And so I ask now that if there are any questions, I hope you will restrict your questions to the subject, tonight's subject, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, more or less in that area of Gloria, can you hear me? Are there any questions?
I don't think there is any question in the chat. If anyone have any question, you can raise your hand. Oh, Kim has a question.
Hi, Bhante. Thanks for the talk. I really struggle with mindfulness. I'm getting better in meditation, but in everyday life, it's really difficult. I tend to get on autopilot.
Does your mind wander into thoughts? Is that the problem? And then you just start doing things automatically?
Yeah, I think it's just, I have routines.
Yeah.
So I think I do so many things without even thinking of them. So just throwing it out there, something I have trouble with.
Yeah, my daughter, several years ago, she had an apartment, and when she would leave for work in the morning, she would forget to turn the stove off. Or she would get in the car and drive a ways and then not actually remember whether she turned it off or not, and then drive back. And she even had did that more than once at a time. And so I urged her to do things that were, I don't know if this is related at all to what you're saying, but it reminds me of that. Does that have anything to do with what you're doing when you're saying autopilot? You're not really together with the present moment, and you're thinking about other things, and then you go off and do something, and then you look back and you're not absolutely sure whether you completed the things that were at home?
Not so much that is I think that I've been doing the same thing for so long that I just continue to do them and I don't pay attention to it. I'm not mindful of it.
Is it your work?
Yeah, work, but home, routines, getting out of bed, exercising, doing this, doing that, breakfast,
Well, do you have a period of time when you meditate?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. And so you successfully do the meditation. Well, I don't know about the rest of the day, but I would say do your meditation regularly and maybe increase your meditation to more than once. If you do it once a day, do it twice a day or more, if possible, and that will provide an extra amount of time when you're present and mindful, and that will probably spread out to the rest of the day. You know, the more you do it, the more you can do. The more you do it. I would say concentrate on the meditation. And there's another one that I learned that I don't do too much myself, but the teacher at Bhavana, the second in command, taught everybody at retreats to do single moment meditations, like once an hour. You look at the clock and think, oh, for a minute I am mindful for 1 minute. And during that minute it's mindful. And then you wait for another hour or whatever time you designate. Those single moment meditations were one way. That's one way to combat it. You could do every hour, you look at the hour and you're mindful for 60 seconds or whatever time you can. You think you could do that? You'd be interested in doing that?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Thank you.
Or something that you, in your own imagination, you might be able to come up with something in a similar to that. Yeah, somebody. Pinder.
Yes, Bhante. Thank you very much for your talk. I've been wondering how do you stay on the Eightfold Path in times where it's very difficult. Let's say right now, you're living in a country where you're attacked. Let's say you're in Ukraine and you're being attacked and you have to defend yourself or your country. But you want to stay on that path. So is there any way to do that? How do you deal with aggression towards yourself or to loved ones if somebody attacks a loved one and you want to, defend them or something like that? How do you deal with those situations?
Yeah, that reminds me of the Tibetan people who were invaded by the Russians. And they were actually tortured by the Russians, and some of them maintained their love and refused to give in to hatred, which is part of the Noble Eightfold Path. That's part of Buddhism. Well, it's very difficult for anybody, but you can take them as an example. All I can say is that it's certainly work, but it's invaluable work if you can even put a drop a day of love to your enemies. Even a drop of loving kindness to those people who are, you have to realize, are machines who are acting according to what they're being told. They don't hate you in particular. They're simply being told what to do, and stay out of their way. And hold in your heart as much metta as you can, and practice metta meditation as much as you can. I would say that's the main thing that you can do. As much meditation that you can practice as you can. That's what Bhante Ji, my former teacher, was a metta master, and he wrote books about metta, and whenever he did a retreat, he would always start out doing metta for more than one day. Even a jhana meditation, he would do maybe 4 days of metta meditation, at least. Do metta meditation as much as possible, and I would extend that to everybody, of course. Metta. And if you're not clear on what it is, read a book on it. Get Bhante G's book on metta, or somebody, Susan Salzberg's book. I believe it's called Love and Kindness Meditation. I read it when I first started before I became a monk. I thought it was a very good book. If you can get it. But at any rate, all right? Does that help? There's another person who wants to. Yes, there's another person who wants. Karen?
Yeah, my name's Karen.
Karen.
And I admit to not knowing anything about prayer in the Buddhist tradition, and I really would appreciate it if you would teach me or teach us about prayer.
Well,
prayer.
Prayer isn't really used in Buddhism so much.
Right.
But if a person is meditating and extending metta to people, it's not exactly different, but you're not praying to an overlord, God, and asking for help.
Yes. So one doesn't do that in Buddhism.
No.
Right.
No, but what I'm suggesting is an alternative form which Buddhists practice. Mm-hmm. Buddhists are not deists. They don't believe in a supreme being.
Yes.
And does that help? Or do you want a more extensive definition of Buddhism?
I think you might be right. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Best wishes.
Thank you.
To everyone. Any other questions?
I received a question through the chat. Can I read it to you?
Yes.
How can we, dear Bhante, how can we love our unpleasant condition in the present?
How can we love our what?
Unpleasant.
Unpleasant.
Unpleasant condition in the present, so we can be mindful despite our dislike to our present situation.
Well, the unpleasant feelings are suffering, and we just talked about suffering and how to overcome suffering. So what it is you're grasping, and I think I forgot to mention tanha, or did I mention that the Buddha said, what is the cause of suffering? And he caused grasping and craving. Oh, I did mention craving. And so you're craving something, and your unpleasant feelings are due in some way to, I would imagine that in some way what you crave, you're not getting what you're craving. In some way, you're not able to hold on. It's not there for you, and it's not coming to you. And what you need to do is let go of the craving in the first place, and see the craving, and see that the craving equals suffering, and you're causing yourself suffering. You're causing yourself suffering by all the cravings. All those things that you think are so valuable in the world, whether they're physical or mental, or they're all causing you suffering in the end. Non-craving is the answer to that. Non-craving. Overcoming tanha. Okay. Okay, is that clear? Is that any more? Does that help at all, or?
I think the person is happy with that.
Oh, that's right. It isn't you. It's you read that. I'm sorry. Well, I hope they're clear on that. Okay.
Bhante, there seems to be a lot of steps between identifying the craving and letting go of it. Letting go being the process.
Oh.
But what comes before it? Because you can know that letting go is useful, you can understand it, you can feel the pain of the suffering. I was wondering if maybe you had an example in your own experience of going through that process of feeling the suffering of clinging.
Well, the only thing that I can think of, and the only thing that I can think of that I've done is meditation. And what I would certainly recommend to anybody, and it may sound like an easy out, but this is my honest belief, and not just because I'm a monk and a Buddhist, but I believe that meditation is your answer to most of these problems. Remember the teaching of the Buddha, read the suttas and see what the teaching is and what it says about these things. You can look up you can look up suffering, the dukkha, in the suttas and use that as your guide. And the Buddha is our guide, our teacher, and besides meditation, read the suttas, and you'll find an answer. Read the Dhammapada. You'll find answers to questions in the Dhammapada, short verses. Every day you can pick it up and find something. This is what I would recommend without knowing a person personally. But every person has these same, everybody is filled with the same defilements. We're all filled with defilements. And the way to combat defilements is through this meditation and through understanding and seeing the defilements, through making determined effort. That's one of the aspects, right effort. You make a determined effort to overcome negative states of mind and replace them with positive states of mind. That's part of right effort. It comes before the right mindfulness meditation, insight meditation, or what's sometimes called concentration meditation. Right effort to overcome defilements and replace them with positive states of mind. I think that falls into what you're talking about. This is something that we have to practice in order to practice insight meditation, because if our mind is filled with defilements and hating people, we're not going to get much insight into so on. You see what I mean?
Thank you, Bhante.
Read the Dhammacakkappavattana, that's turning the wheel of Dhamma. That's the first sermon, the first sutta by the Buddha at Sarnath by Varanasi. Pronounce it right. And at Sarnath. And if you ever go to India, you can go to the deer park. It's still there, outside Benares is the old pronunciation. And there's a big stupa in a good condition. And you can sit there and meditate facing the place where the Buddha delivered the first sutta to his disciples, his handful of disciples. It's very inspiring. It's awe-inspiring. Awe-inspiring. Anyway, you can look at pictures if you can't go to India, but follow the Buddha. He is your guide, and follow what the suttas. Take up one of the suttas, like the Majjhima Nikaya. The Majjhima Nikaya is the middle-length discourses. The suttas that people start with, or if not this Dhammapada, but middle-length discourses. The Majjhima Nikaya is much longer, but it's wonderful to read a sutta every day. Is what I would recommend to everyone.
It's not a question, but can I share something?
Yes?
Yes, I just want to testify, the power of metta meditation. Yes, I used to have a kind of difficult childhood, and then recently I was just realizing I can sense the tension in my lower abdomen, and then people say that if you have bad experience related to your parents, you will have a lot of tensions in your lower abdomen. And then I received some advice of embracing your fear instead of avoiding from it. And then I was because I was doing so much loving kindness meditation, and then I was able to just embrace my fear, and then I would just start to cry non-stop. I cry so hard because I seldom cry in my life, and I don't cry that I usually do not cry a lot. But when I do the meditation, I embrace the fear, and I just crying non-stop. And then I was able to maintain that, loving kindness awareness in my experience, and step out from it soothing myself in the process. And then while those emotions are being released, it's I used to have a lot of anxiety, and I would think negatively about myself a lot. But with those emotions really come out and release, and then I just have so much loving kindness to myself, which I have never experienced. It's real. This morning I was just thinking about I was always finding love from other people, but I do not realize that love is just here. It's weird, but yes. And then I was just realizing love is here, and then yes, it's a weird experience. I'm still going through the process, but I just feel the power of loving kindness meditation is really amazing. Yes, and you said that do lots of metta, and then I think I do a lot of metta, and I will continue to do more, and I think it's amazing. Yes,
excellent. That's wonderful. And the first person, who's the first person that you should always give metta to when you're doing metta meditation?
Yeah, yes.
It's yourself. Yourself.
Yes.
As Bhante Ji always said, if you can't give yourself metta meditation, then you will find it impossible to give other people metta meditation. That's what Bhante Ji always said to us.
Oh, yes, that's true. It's after I was able to really feel the loving kindness, when I give him good wishes to myself, when I say, may I be well, I let that word to sink into my heart and just spread through my body. And then when I feel the reverberation of the word, and I would start to cry. And then, but that's kind of like the feeling of healing inside, like healing from the inside. And then I used to afraid of my parents and kind of a little bit hated them. But I think it's after I released those emotions, I'm no longer afraid of them. Does that make sense? I do not afraid of them, and I have loving kindness for them as well. And it just takes no effort to wish them to be well. And I think it's wonderful to have a heart that do not have so many enemies. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. Thank you very much. Well, it's 8:25 by my clock. And if there are no other questions, I would say that we could conclude.
Yes, if that's okay, can you give us a blessing before?
Yes, yes. This is a protection blessing. Sabe Buddha Bala Pata Pacheka Nang Chayang Balang Arhatanang Tatejena Rakang Bandami Sabaso. May you have protection in all ways. I secure for you protection in all ways.